When a family dinner shatters with a shocking confession, one woman is forced to uncover a labyrinth of secrets and lies that will change everything she thought she knew about love, loyalty, and blood. I used to believe that happiness had a sound. For me, it was the murmur of laughter around a dinner table, the clinking of wine glasses, the comforting rhythm of my husband's voice blending with my sister's. That evening, our house glowed with warmth. The scent of rosemary chicken filled the air, candles flickered, and the city outside our windows felt far away. I looked at Daniel, my husband, my anchor, and felt the familiar rush of gratitude. He was successful, kind, steady. The man who made me believe in forever. Beside him sat my sister, Claire. Younger by 3 years, quieter, with the same dark hair and eyes that mirrored mine. Claire had always been a shadow in my life, lingering just behind me, less bold, less celebrated. But tonight, she seemed different. There was a brightness in her gaze, a strange intensity. We talked about trivial things, work, the weather, a new restaurant we wanted to try. I poured the wine, savoring the normalcy. And then, Claire set down her glass and said the words that would split my life in two. "I'm pregnant," she said. Her voice trembled, but her eyes did not. "And Daniel is the father." The world tilted. At first, I laughed, too loudly, too sharply. It had to be a joke. But Claire's stare was unwavering, and Daniel's silence was worse than any confession. I felt the room collapse around me. The perfect dinner, the perfect life, shattered in a single breath. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. The chicken grew cold on our plates while I stared at the two people I trusted most in the world. My husband's hands clenched into fists on the table. My sister's lips pressed into a thin, defiant line. The sound of happiness was gone. All I heard now was the echo of betrayal. The silence that followed Claire's revelation clung to me like smoke. I waited for Daniel to deny it, to rise from his chair and call her insane. But he didn't. He simply lowered his gaze to his untouched food, jaw tight, as though the words themselves had shackled him. "Say something," I whispered, my throat raw. He looked at me then, his eyes dark, unreadable. "This isn't the time, Emma." "Not the time?" My entire world had just cracked open, and he wanted to schedule the collapse. Claire shifted in her seat, and for the first time I noticed how pale she looked beneath her mask of defiance. Her fingers twisted together in her lap, trembling slightly. "You don't believe me?" she asked, her voice almost too steady. "Why would I lie about something like this?" "Why indeed?" I stood, the legs of my chair screeching against the hardwood. "I don't know, Claire. But I do know my husband, and I know you. This makes no sense." Daniel rose too, but slowly, like a man walking toward an execution. "Emma, please. Let's not do this here." My heart hammered. "Where else would we do it, Daniel?" "She's claiming you," my voice cracked. "That you betrayed me with her." He didn't answer. He didn't rage, didn't deny. And that silence was louder than any confession. I left the table, my vision blurred, retreating into the kitchen. The wine bottle still stood there, half full. I gripped it with shaking hands, debating whether to smash it against the counter or drown myself in it. Through the doorway, I could hear them murmuring. Low voices, urgent, conspiratorial. Not lovers' whispers. Something else. Something darker. When I returned, they both looked up too quickly. Their faces carried masks, Daniel's of weary calm, Claire's of forced courage. I realized, then, that I wasn't just angry. I was afraid. Because whatever bound them together, it wasn't just betrayal. It was a secret. And secrets have teeth. I didn't sleep that night. Daniel moved restlessly beside me, turning, sighing, a man locked in his own storm. I lay still, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster as if they could anchor me to something solid. By morning, the house felt like a stranger's. Daniel left early for work, avoiding my eyes, and Claire had retreated to the guest room, the door closed, the air heavy with unspoken words. I needed answers. At first, I thought I would search for the obvious: messages, phone calls, anything to prove the affair. But when I opened Daniel's desk drawer, I found something I hadn't expected: medical papers. Folded, hidden beneath stacks of invoices. I unfolded them with trembling hands. Not a pregnancy report. Not an affair's careless receipt. Hospital letters. Blood tests. A series of appointments booked under Daniel's name: neurology, oncology. Cold sweat gathered at the base of my neck. I searched further, and in his briefcase I found a phone I didn't recognize. A burner phone, cheap and scratched. When I pressed the button, the screen lit up with a single unread message. She can't know. Not yet. The sender was listed only as C. Claire. My stomach lurched. But what did it mean? If this wasn't about an affair, then what? Why claim something so monstrous, so cruel, if the truth was something else entirely? I remembered the way Daniel had looked at me when I demanded answers: trapped, cornered. Not guilty. Afraid. That night, I tried to confront him. I waited until he came home, his tie loosened, his face pale with exhaustion. Why didn't you tell me about the hospital visits? I asked, holding up the folded papers. His eyes widened, and for a heartbeat I thought he might finally confess. But then his expression shuddered, and he took the documents from my hands with a slow, deliberate motion. You shouldn't have gone through my things, he said quietly. That's all you have to say? Yes. He turned away, shoulders rigid, leaving me with a truth I didn't yet understand but could feel pressing closer. Claire had lied, or half lied. And Daniel was protecting her, or himself, or both. But from what? The next few days passed in fragments: half-spoken words, locked doors, glances that slid away from mine. My home, once a sanctuary, had become a stage where everyone knew their lines but me. Claire avoided me. She spent hours walking in the garden or locking herself in the guest room, emerging only for meals, her face carefully arranged. Whenever I caught her gaze, I saw a flicker: guilt, fear, or something else entirely. I couldn't stand it anymore. One evening, while Daniel worked late, I slipped into her room. The air smelled faintly of her perfume, sharp and floral. Her suitcase sat open at the foot of the bed, clothes spilling out like secrets that refused to stay hidden. Inside, beneath folded sweaters, I found another envelope of documents. At first glance, they looked similar to Daniel's: hospital letters. But these weren't his. They were Claire's. Ultrasound reports. Not one, not two, but 3, spanning months. My breath caught. The pregnancy was real. But why drag Daniel into it? Why declare him the father at the dinner table like a dagger thrown across the room? I searched further and found something stranger still: a handwritten note crumpled at the bottom of the suitcase. The ink was smudged, the words uneven, as if written in a rush. If she learns the truth, everything ends. Protect him at any cost. There was no signature. But I knew whose handwriting it was. Claire's. I dropped the paper, my hands trembling. Protect him? Daniel? From what? The lies were no longer a web, they were a labyrinth, and I was walking deeper into it with every step. That night, Daniel returned home late again. I watched him move around the bedroom in silence, loosening his tie, unbuttoning his cuffs. You and Claire, I said softly, unable to stop myself. You're hiding something from me. And it isn't what I thought. He froze, his back to me. Then, slowly, he turned, his eyes heavy with something I couldn't name. You need to trust me, Emma, he said. Even if it feels impossible. Trust you? After this? I laughed bitterly. You both stand there, weaving lies around me, and I'm supposed to. He stepped closer, pressing a hand gently to my cheek. His palm was warm, steady, while my skin burned with questions. I'm not your enemy, he whispered. And for one dangerous moment, I almost believed him. I began to move like a thief in my own home. Every creak of the floorboards felt like an accusation, every closed door a barrier between me and the truth. One night, when the house was wrapped in silence, I heard it, voices. Not loud, but urgent. I crept down the hallway, barefoot, pressing myself against the wall as I neared the study. The door was ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the darkness. She's getting suspicious, Claire's voice. Tight, trembling. She was bound to, Daniel replied. His tone was low, weary. We can't keep her in the dark forever. My pulse quickened. We don't have a choice, Claire whispered. If she knows, she'll be in danger too. Danger? I leaned closer, the wood cool against my cheek. Daniel sighed. You've already put us all at risk with that announcement. She forced my hand. Claire's voice cracked. They were watching, Daniel. I had to make her believe something, anything, that would push her away from the truth. The room fell into silence. My heart pounded in my ears. Who were they? What truth could possibly be worse than the betrayal she had confessed? I shifted, just slightly, and the floorboard beneath me groaned. The voices stopped. The door creaked open, and Daniel's silhouette filled the frame. His eyes locked on mine in the half-light, unreadable, sharp. Emma, he said softly, like a man addressing a ghost. What are you doing here? I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to steady. Listening. Claire appeared behind him, her face pale as paper, lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment, the three of us stood frozen, a triangle of secrets and suspicion. Then Daniel stepped forward, his hand closing gently around my arm. Not rough, not cruel, gentle, as though I might shatter. There are things you don't understand, he said. Not yet. I pulled free, anger sparking through my fear. Then make me understand. Right now. Neither of them spoke. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. Whatever truth they were hiding, it wasn't just theirs. It was mine too. I couldn't shake their words. They were watching. She'll be in danger too. Those fragments echoed through me, poisoning every moment of the following day. If Daniel and Claire wouldn't tell me the truth, I would dig it out myself. I started with the attic. Our house had belonged to Daniel's parents before us, and boxes of their old papers and keepsakes were stacked beneath the slanted roof. Dust rose in lazy clouds as I rifled through forgotten photographs, brittle letters, yellowed receipts. Most of it was mundane, but then I found a locked tin box wedged behind a stack of yearbooks. It was scratched and dented, with a heavy padlock that looked older than me. I carried it downstairs, heart racing. The lock was stiff but brittle, and after several desperate attempts with a screwdriver, it gave way with a snap. Inside lay bundles of letters tied with frayed string, hospital records, and, most shocking of all, birth certificates. 2 of them. One was mine. The other bore Claire's name. But something was wrong. The dates didn't match the ones we had always known. Claire's certificate placed her birth not 3 years after mine, but only 1. And the mother's name was not my mother's, but another woman entirely. I stared at the papers until the words blurred. My breath grew shallow, my hands cold. Claire wasn't my full sister. She was something else. A half-sister? A secret child? The letters offered no comfort, only more questions. They were from a woman named Margaret, addressed to Daniel's father. The tone was pleading, desperate, filled with references to promises broken and debts unpaid. At the bottom of the box was a photograph. It showed my father, younger, standing beside a woman I didn't recognize, Margaret, perhaps. She held a baby in her arms. Claire. I dropped the photo, my chest tightening. All my life, I had believed in the story of us, Emma and Claire, sisters bound by blood and history. But now the ground shifted beneath my feet. Claire was tied to me, yes, but also to something hidden, something my family had buried long ago. That night, I confronted her. I stormed into the guest room, the photograph clutched in my fist. She was sitting on the bed, staring at her phone, but when she saw the picture, her face went white. "You knew," I said, my voice shaking. "All this time. You knew we weren't really." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she whispered, "Emma, please, you don't understand. It wasn't supposed to touch you." I stepped closer, my anger burning away the fear. "Then explain it to me. Now." She shook her head, lips trembling. "If I tell you, you'll be in danger too. Just like us." And in her voice, I heard it again, the same terror I'd caught in Daniel's eyes. A terror that told me the past wasn't just a buried story. It was alive. And it was coming for us. For days, I carried the photograph like a wound. Every time I looked at Claire, I no longer saw just my sister, I saw the stranger in my bloodline, the unanswered questions behind her eyes. But what haunted me most wasn't the revelation itself. It was the fear. Claire's fear. Daniel's fear. And the single word they both kept circling around, danger. One evening, after Daniel left for yet another late meeting, I followed Claire. She slipped out of the house quietly, not knowing I was behind her, my footsteps muffled by the night. She walked fast, her coat pulled tight, until she reached the edge of town. There, parked beneath a flickering street lamp, was a dark sedan. She hesitated only a moment before climbing into the passenger seat. My heart pounded as I crouched behind a tree, straining to see. Through the windshield, I caught glimpses of a man, older, sharp-featured, with a scar across his cheek. His presence radiated menace even from a distance. They talked for several minutes. Claire's hands moved nervously, her head bowing, nodding. The man never once looked away from her, his posture cold, predatory. Finally, he handed her an envelope. Thick. Heavy. She clutched it to her chest like a lifeline. When she stepped out of the car, I ducked further into the shadows, holding my breath as she hurried past me, her eyes darting like a hunted animal's. I waited until the sedan pulled away before stepping into the light. My pulse thundered in my ears. Who was he? And what hold did he have over Claire? The next morning, I confronted her again, unable to keep the rage inside. "I saw you," I hissed, cornering her in the kitchen. "With him. Who is he? What are you hiding from me?" Her face drained of color. She set the envelope on the counter, her hands trembling. "Emma, you shouldn't have followed me. That's your answer?" I snapped. "You sneak off to meet a stranger in the middle of the night, and I'm the one in the wrong?" Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice was steady. "He's not a stranger. He's part of the reason Daniel and I," she trailed off, pressing her lips together. "We're trying to keep you safe." "Safe from what?" I demanded. She looked at me for a long moment, her gaze filled with sorrow. Then she whispered, "Safe from the people who destroyed our family before. The ones who never stopped watching us." I froze, the words sinking into me like ice. The Watchers. The ones who had haunted my father, my sister, my husband. And now, me. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside the house felt like a threat, every shadow on the street a pair of eyes. Daniel tried to comfort me, though his words only deepened my unease. "Trust me, Emma. Please. Some truths are heavier than you think." But how could I trust when I'd been shut out of my own life? I decided to take matters into my own hands. The envelope Claire had left on the counter was still there, tucked behind the bread box as if she'd hoped I wouldn't notice. I opened it when she and Daniel were both gone. Inside were photographs. Grainy, black and white surveillance shots. Me. Daniel. Claire. Our house. In some, I was walking to my car. In others, Daniel was leaving his office. Claire in the garden. All of us, captured from a distance. And at the bottom, a single note written in block letters. Debts don't die. You know what we want. My knees buckled. I gripped the counter, bile rising in my throat. Debts. From whom? For what? That evening, when Daniel came home, I shoved the photographs into his chest. Explain this. Right now. He looked at them, his face tightening, but not with surprise. With resignation. Emma, he sat down heavily, running a hand through his hair. This is what I was trying to protect you from. Protect me? My voice cracked. By letting me think you were sleeping with my sister? His eyes closed, shame flickering across his features. It wasn't supposed to go that far. Claire panicked. She thought, if you hated me, if you hated her, you'd stay away. You wouldn't dig deeper. My chest heaved. Dig into what? He opened his eyes, meeting mine at last. Your father's mistakes. The people he owed. The people who don't forget. The room swayed around me. My father. Dead for years. His debts, his ghosts, somehow reaching across time to strangle us now. You're lying, I whispered, though the photographs in my hands said otherwise. I wish I were, Daniel murmured. At that moment, Claire appeared in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. Emma, he's telling the truth. And it's worse than you think. Claire's words hung in the air like smoke, impossible to breathe through. I stared at her, at Daniel, at the photographs spread across the table like evidence in a trial I hadn't agreed to. Start talking, I said. My voice was sharper than I felt inside. Inside, I was unraveling. Claire stepped forward, clutching her arms. You were too young to remember. But I wasn't. I remember the men who came to our house late at night, the shouting, the threats. Dad thought he could outsmart them. He thought his charm, his deals, would be enough. But they never let go. Her eyes brimmed with tears. When he died, I thought it was over. But it wasn't. They started watching us. Waiting. And when Daniel and I found out they'd resurfaced, we couldn't let you get pulled in. I shook my head, disbelief clawing at me. So you made me believe you were pregnant with my husband's child? That's how you protect me? By destroying me? Claire's voice cracked. It was the only way to keep you out. If you hated us, you wouldn't look deeper. You'd walk away. Daniel leaned forward, his hands folded tightly. Emma, the truth is your father owed them more than money. He owed them loyalty. He was involved in things we can't wash away with time. And now, they think it's our turn to pay. I felt the room tilt, the air grow thin. My father, my kind, charming father, entangled with criminals? It didn't fit. But the photographs in front of me, the fear in Daniel's eyes, the desperation in Claire's voice, they told another story. What do they want? I whispered. Daniel's mouth tightened. Everything. Money. Silence. And if they can't have that, blood. A chill swept through me. Claire reached for my hand, her grip trembling. You weren't supposed to know, Emma. We wanted to shield you. But they've made it clear, they know about you too. And they don't forgive. Ever. My hand slipped from hers. My life, my perfect, fragile life, was no longer just broken. It was a target. And for the first time, I wondered if I was already too late to escape it. The night after their confession, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with the photographs spread across the coffee table, staring at the faces of strangers who had stolen my peace. Every creak of the house felt like footsteps approaching, every shadow stretching across the glass doors felt like a warning. I thought of my father, his warm laugh, the way he carried me on his shoulders, the bedtime stories. Could that man really have been someone else? A liar? A criminal? Or had he been a prisoner, just like us? At dawn, I made a decision. I couldn't stay passive, waiting for danger to arrive. If my father had left this poison behind, then somewhere there had to be an antidote. I went back to the tin box I'd found in the attic. This time I combed through every scrap of paper, every folded letter. And then, at the very bottom, I discovered something I had overlooked before, a small key taped inside an envelope. On the outside, in my father's handwriting, were 2 words. For Emma. My breath caught. My name. My father's hand. The key was old, brass, and worn smooth. No note explained what it unlocked. But I knew, I felt it in my bones, that this was the missing piece. When Daniel came home, I confronted him with the key. His face went pale. Where did you find that? In the box, I said. In an envelope with my name. Claire, who had been hovering near the doorway, gasped softly, her hand flying to her mouth. Daniel closed his eyes. Then it's true. He meant for you to know, one day. Know what? I demanded. He hesitated, then said, there's a storage unit. Outside the city. He kept it hidden. That key, it's the only way in. Whatever's inside, Emma, it's the truth. The whole truth. The words sank into me like stones in water. A storage unit. A secret he had left behind. And a choice, open it, or continue living in the dark. I looked at the key, its metal warm in my hand. My father had wanted me to find it. Wanted me to face what he hadn't. I straightened, my voice steady. Then we go tomorrow. All of us. No more lies. Daniel's eyes flickered with something I couldn't name, fear, maybe hope. Claire nodded slowly, though her hands still trembled. For the first time since that dinner, I felt a spark inside me. Not peace. Not relief. But determination. If the truth was waiting, I was ready to meet it. Even if it destroyed me. Epilogue, rebirth. The storage unit was colder than I expected. The metal door groaned as Daniel pulled it open, the sound echoing like a warning. Dust swirled in the dim light of the single bulb overhead. Rows of boxes lined the walls, each marked with dates, names, codes I didn't understand. But at the very center sat a single trunk, black leather, cracked with age. My father's initials were stamped on the lid. My hands shook as I fit the key into the lock. It turned easily, almost too easily, as though it had been waiting for this moment all along. Inside were files. Dozens of them. Newspaper clippings, photographs, handwritten notes. Names of people I had never heard of, businessmen, politicians, even police officers. Every page was a thread in a web of corruption, extortion, and betrayal that stretched farther than I could imagine. At the very bottom of the trunk lay a letter. My name on the envelope. I tore it open. Emma. If you are reading this, it means I failed to protect you from the shadow I carried. I tried to pay the price for my choices, but men like them never forgive, never forget. I left you this so you could understand. I did what I did to keep you safe. If I lied, it was to shield you. If I vanished into deals I could never escape, it was so you could live free. But freedom is fragile. It must be fought for. One day, they may come for you. When they do, you must decide, run, or fight. I believe in you, Emma. More than I ever believed in myself. Dad. The paper blurred through my tears. I wanted to scream, to rage at him, to tell him he had ruined everything. But I also wanted to cling to the memory of the man who had carried me on his shoulders, who had believed in me even as he admitted his own weakness. I folded the letter carefully, placing it back into the trunk. Daniel's hand brushed mine. His eyes were steady. Now you know. Claire stood behind him, pale but resolute. It's not over, Emma. They'll come again. But this time, we'll be ready. For the first time since that dinner, since my world shattered, I felt a strange calm. The lies were gone. The illusion stripped away. All that was left was the truth, brutal, ugly, and yet, liberating. I wasn't just a betrayed wife or a wounded sister. I was my father's daughter. And whatever shadow he had left me, I would learn to walk through it. Not as a victim, but as someone reborn.